Portal strategy is on the forefront of everybody's mind. Clark Lea is targeting system fit transfers, and he's building a winning culture at Vanderbilt.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Thank you for making us your first listen. And we got an action-packed show, and we're going to answer a few questions here. I got Mike Huesmann to help me answer those questions, and looks like he's preparing for the incoming snowstorm. You look very cozy over there, Mike.
Support San Diego State Aztec football with this shirt on is what I'm doing. Yeah.
And staying warm, too. So we're going to answer the question, Mike. How does Vanderbilt become the next Indiana? We're going to get to that. We're going to talk about simultaneously the end of the season, the final rankings, and the extremely way too early 2026 rankings, which I think Fox had the right idea. No one else did, but Fox did. So I'll show them a little love there. But I want to first talk about portal strategy, because that's usually the debate among probably every fan base out there, whether like what kind of fits are you getting? What are you getting? High ranking guys? Are you spending money and getting the blue chip guys? What type of guys is your team going for? And how do Vandy fans feel about where Clark Lea is going and what direction he's going in this transfer portal? It's a mixed bag all across the board. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second as well. But this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, Mike, Vanderbilt, they're kind of the strategy that Clark Lea is going with. And, I think there's a handful of Vandy fans that understand and just, hey, we're getting some good value players that fill some needs, and we're good at coaching them up and their scheme fits and all that stuff. But then there's another segment of like disappointment where you're like, okay, well, we're coming off a 10-2 regular season, even though we lost in the bowl game, the momentum didn't really die. We should be ranked higher, and we should be getting more than just some 3-star guys. And there's also the notion of Power 4 reserve players that were highly regarded, a lot of pedigree out of high school, but just didn't get that opportunity versus productive guys at the G5 and FCS levels. So let's dive in with just, instead of just going out and just unloading money on the highest rated guys versus really honing in on what you need. Kind of what do you think about that? Like where do you fall in that regard?
So there's two fundamental ways you can approach the portal. Well, there's a third if you're going to be Dabo and just not use it, but we're not talking about those people.
We're not Clemson. So
where you can either go, your portal strategy can either be, we're going to get guys who have produced at schools, whether it be smaller schools, lower recruited guys that have already produced. We can target them. Or the flip side of that is we can target guys who have high upside, a lot of potential, a lot of talent, but they haven't shown it yet. And there are examples of both theories hitting and both theories missing. The prominent one now, if you're going for guys who have produced at a lower level and are veterans that have seen a lot of the field, that hit for Curt Cignetti. Indiana winning a national championship is because he targeted the right guys in the portal who had produced, and they won games doing that. But there are also misses doing that. Colorado missed doing that this year. They won 3 games, and most of that roster was guys that portaled in after having success at other schools. Oklahoma State was 1-11. They were terrible. Most of that roster was acquired through the portal and were guys that had succeeded at other schools. Wisconsin did the same thing, and they were terrible this year. But a lot of that roster, those guys had been successful elsewhere. Now, the other way, the we're going to recruit guys with a lot of talent, and you trust yourself enough to develop them. That's work for Lane Kiffin. He's hit on doing that model. Kenny Dillingham has hit using that model at Arizona State. They've been able to develop guys who are talented that haven't shown it elsewhere, but that also misses. Hugh Freeze whiffed doing that. He thought Jackson Arnold's a highly touted QB, wasn't great at Oklahoma, but I can nurture him. I can get him to being a good QB. That didn't work for Hugh Freeze. He whiffed on it. It also whiffed on for Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, who's now out of a job.
Yeah, and it can, and that's the thing. It can go both ways, and
absolutely.
And Vanderbilt went over a 2-year period. They got a heavy combination of guys that portaled in that had a lot of pedigree, but just didn't get that chance. And then they also had some guys that produced at a high level at the lower levels, and they were able to win and be successful with both. I mean, the two best players in Vanderbilt football history over a 2-year period, Eli Stowers and Diego Pavia, are prime examples of that. Cade McConnell is a prime example of a guy that just needed a chance. And now he's about to be a 2-year starter on the offensive line with potentially NFL potential at the guard position. You get a NFL type center as a 1-year guy coming in from Liberty. He's going to be a top, in the top 2 rounds. He had success and produced at the G5 level at Liberty. And then, it's just a combination, just go position by position. You could look at who portaled in. And also, you got to factor in for Vanderbilt, when you mix that in with high school recruiting, it really shows that the development of these guys and getting these guys ready to play is very high. And I think Kirk Cignetti, to a certain point, had done some stuff with some high school recruits as well, like as far as development and integrating them in with all the portal guys. And he just had a really good nucleus of players there. Yeah. And
the guys that came with him from James Madison, he developed a lot of those guys between the two schools. So it's not that they were total portal heavy and he didn't develop anybody. Well, no, going back 4 years, he recruited those guys and he did develop a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, ideally, I think a good model for Vandy, I think, would be 3 years ago when we had the really good Florida State team. Mike Norvell developed most of those guys. A lot of them were big recruits, but at the positions he knew they were weak, there was 4 or 5 of them. You targeted elite guys in the portal at those positions. I feel like that's kind of what Vandy's doing in a sense of, the positions where you need guys, you're hitting the portal heavy, but in the positions where you feel good about your roster, you're not taking those guys in the portal because you like the development you're seeing there from your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you take one safety, Ricardo Jones. Yeah. You feel good about the other guys. Like Dante Carter has developed well for you coming out of high school. He's got to still put on a little more weight, but I think he can be an impact player. Carson Lawrence, the same at that position. You have some of your corners that are high school guys, but then again, you've got like portal heavy guy. Like Martell Height was a guy that developed through high school recruiting, and you had a much larger class coming in 25 than you did coming into 24, where I think you only had 13 guys coming in the previous cycle. Now you have 24 guys coming in this recent cycle with a blue chip quarterback.
Yeah. And you have positions like linebacker and running back where you're not bringing in any portal guys. You're totally relying on your roster as it is.
And you feel good about that because you have
absolutely.
You feel good about Kentucky State Player of the Year in 5A, Evan Hampton at running back, and Isaiah Lee to come in with him.
And you got Longwell, Patterson, and I'm forgetting the
I think he lost his appeal, so he's not coming back.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
He was.
But obviously, say Longwell, Patterson, and Cowan, you all were expecting those 3 back. Who they all probably started every game, I would assume, or close to it.
Yeah, and you recruited well at that position.
Yeah. Who I'm blanking on the guy's name, but I'm the one who, for about 3 days, he was Vandy's highest recruit ever. Who is that?
Larry Sanders. He's in the 27 class.
Oh, he is. Okay.
He's in the 27 class, which is setting up to be one of the best class in Vanderbilt history before it's all said and done. There's some big names that have Vandy in their top 2.
And we talked about that before, with how Jared Curtis can snowball into more recruits. Well, he flipped so close to the signing date, you weren't going to see it in the 26 class. No. It's going to be next year and the year after. Yeah.
And you got a bump with like Owen Cabell coming over from CPA. You flip him from Bama on signing day. So like that was probably all you were going to get flip wise for this class because it was so late. And a lot of the hay was in the barn already. So this 27 class is supposedly going to be a really, really nice class. But, I like the strategy of figuring out how to develop and get star recruits. Like you could end up being the school that dominates high school recruiting in the SEC because everything's going to be so portal heavy, and then supplementing with what am I trying to say? With veterans, and you could become like that's the Kirby Smart Georgia model. Like you hit high on development and high on high school recruiting. You supplement through the portal, and you can really focus and zero in. My hopes is that they'll eventually get their offensive line into a position to where they can actually do that and not have to replace 4 starters every single year, which get very exhausting.
Well, one thing I do like that they've done the last 2 years, though, and they've done it better than most other power teams, they've identified the elite FCS tackles and signed them right away when you're going to have less competition for those guys. And that's worked out for them the last 2 years.
Yeah, and that's a nice little pipeline they have into the Missouri Valley Conference that I think they're starting to get some attention there. And a lot of that is Coach Klinakis and Jeff Nady. Jeff Nady came over with Bryce Henderson from South Dakota as part of the acquisition. So you're starting to build those kind of pipelines, and that might not be a bad idea as far as hitting those areas, because the Dakotas are loaded with offensive linemen, because that's just where they go. And don't know, there's nothing else to do but like get big, get swollen, dominate.
You're throwing hay all day in the summer and playing interior O-line in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah. You're throwing hay in the summer and you're throwing bodies in the fall. So, I mean, it's a perfect scenario there, but it's just for Vanderbilt, they've just got to, continue to show success. And I think people are worried that the volume of recruits isn't quite there yet. They'll eventually fill the roster out. That's just going to happen. They're going to get one more. They're going to get a couple offensive linemen. They're going to backfill some other things and fill the roster with depth.
I mean, they've signed 3 O-linemen, all of whom should start right away. So certainly you might want a little more depth, but maybe that's where you lean on your recruits a little bit, is for the depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the guys that have been there as well, like Gunnar Givens, I think is going to get a shot somewhere, and some of the other guys that are on the roster already. But, again, like when you look at the depth and quality of this class, it may not be the 30 or 35 guys that say Wisconsin is signed or Ole Miss is signed, but you're getting the percentage of day one starters that you're getting in this class is very, very high. Like Javante Connor at tight end, like he's going to come in. I think he's going to come in and start right away.
And I don't know that I would want to bring in portal guys that aren't going to start right away, for the fact of I feel like if you bring in a portal guy who doesn't start, he's more likely to enter the portal again after a year than a recruit would be, because a lot of times you're going there to start because you weren't starting at your last place. Now, Connor's situation is different, coming up from a G5 school. But I think the theory of it is sound, where a portal guy's coming to start, and if he doesn't start, he's more likely to leave right away.
Yeah, that is very, very sound logic. And I like the fact that these guys are, I like the depth that we're building. I mean, it's slowly but surely. You're getting some good top line guys so that your high school guys can develop behind them. You create great parity and competition in practice. It brings the high school guys up to speed. And the fact remains that 21 of these signees are early enrollees from the high school recruiting class. So that's going to be huge as well. And so you can't really understate that. And so if I'm a Vanderbilt fan out there, if I'm somebody out there driving in my car, excited about what Vanderbilt is doing and excited coming off a 10-2 season, I'm excited about this class, right? I'm excited to tell you, hey, this roster is improving significantly, and you're going to have more depth in 26 than you did in 25. In 25, you had more depth than you had in 24. So I'm excited about this roster, and anybody out there listening should be as well. But Mike, it all comes down to the fact that you finish ranked inside the top 15 coming off of a really brilliant season. There's some way too early rankings we're going to talk about. We're going to go over time today, Mike, and that's okay. But we're going to talk about the rankings next. But first, I want to talk about FanDuel because the conference championships are set. This is going to be a lot of fun here. FanDuel's giving customers even more ways to get on the action every single game day of the playoffs in this NFC AFC championship weekend. And right now, you get profit boosts and they're waiting for you in the app. And here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on bets that you already feel good about. Like against Jared Stidham, I love the Patriots right now. Mike Vrabel is going to get to the Super Bowl, right? And then on the NFC side, I'm kind of riding with Seattle maybe. And so I'm gonna look.
Defense looks good.
Yeah. They do. They absolutely do. And I'm gonna take a shot on that. The Rams have kind of eked by the last two games, and Seattle just looks a little more comfortable here. So I'm not taking any shots on the underdogs, and I might even build a parlay like Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's gonna have a big game. But you know what? I get to apply that profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. So FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your NFL playoff profit boost every single game day. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. Thank you for making us number one. Thank you for making Locked On number one. And if you're an everydayer, why not just take it up a notch? Join the Everydayer Club. Subscribe. You can go right here at this link on the screen, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayers. Search for Locked On Vandy and sign up. Or if you look in the description, you can click on the link that's lockedonvandy.supercast.com, and you can get there $5 monthly, $50 annually. You get ad-free audio. You get access to a members-only Discord channel, which is on the Discord app. You can chat with fans about anything. There's all kind of Discord channels for whatever interest you have outside of Vanderbilt sports. You can chat with other fans from all around. So it's a great deal, and you really don't want to miss out on it. But I got Mike Huesmann here, off season after dark. This is like the Super Bowl run for you with all the portal stuff and all the coaching
wild.
And all of that. So when you look at the rankings, right, and postseason rankings and trying to project teams and things like that and projecting rosters, here's a look. Here's a side-by-side, okay? And the side-by-side is this. One is from CBS Sports. Final AP poll for 2025 season, which they're just relaying that. I don't think they came up with that themselves. But all the media outlets are going to come out with their own way too early top 25. And this one is according to RJ Young. And why did I pick this one? Because he had Vanderbilt at 11.
Now, I'm looking at the on-3 one for way too early, and
Vanderbilt's not ranked.
They're not ranked in that one. No.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of difference in these two. Yeah.
There's a lot of differences, and I guess Mike, at this time of the year, it's no surprise, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah. No, we would expect that. Yeah. Yeah.
But to finish in the final AP top 15 is phenomenal. Puts a nice little cap on the season. I know Iowa fans are going to be pissed, and any Iowa fans that are lingering on this channel. Y'all are ranked 17th. Vanderbilt's ranked 15th. I guess they're still taking the regular season more into account than just the bowl game. With that, Utah being 14, Oklahoma, Texas being 12 and 13, Georgia still being 6, Indiana number 1. Why are they number? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a pretty accurate list if I'm like that. I think it reflects this team as a whole versus the reactionary, like right after bowl games, look at what college football was. So I think the AP did a pretty good job here there. But this way too early poll, anybody that doesn't have Indiana number 1 coming into the season is I think it's wrong. I think it was wrong for Ohio State not to be ranked number 1 coming into last year.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
They're the defending champions. I don't care if it's Washington that would have won the title. They should be number 1 coming into next season. Then it should just be whatever after that is fine. But number 1 should always be reserved for the defending champion. And if they go on a 3-game losing streak to start the season, yeah, drop them out. But until that happens, leave them at number 1. But it's just the top 25 is going to be everywhere, and as roster movement continues to happen, things are going to jump around, and this is going to be a fun discussion all off season. But like, what jumps out? Like, what team surprised you the most that finished ranked in the top 25, and then the team that surprised you the most that finished ranked outside the top 25?
I mean, for the ones that finished outside, I think we have to say Penn State and Clemson were massive disappointments. We expected they would both be playoff teams and contending for a title, fringe top 5 at worst. They both had disaster seasons. So they would be the disappointments. There's 2 teams that really surprised me this year in terms of, how they finished. Houston was a pleasant surprise. I thought they would get better under Willie Fritz in year 2. They certainly did. And they finished the season ranked 22. And they got a lot of momentum going into next year. They've done well in the portal. And Huesmann, the former A&M QB, will be coming back for Houston. And then the other big surprise, who, if you look back to the offseason after dark of some of the other shows I was on preseason and summer, I said, hammer the over on Virginia, because their schedule was so incredibly easy that it was a no-brainer. They were going to win more than 5 games. 5.5 was Virginia's over. And they ended up making the conference title game. So that, they massively overperformed. And that number was set too low. I mean, they finished 11-3, beat Missouri in a bowl game. Now, I'm not convinced they have staying. But I'm convinced Vandy's going to stay relevant and good. I think Lee has built up a culture where they can do it. I'm not sold on Virginia yet with Tony Elliott. They were really bad for 2 years. Then they were good this year. I need to see them win against an adequate schedule before I'm going to pass judgment there. So we'll see about Virginia long term. But both Virginia and Houston, if you would have looked last year preseason, they outperformed expectations. And Houston was good too.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at Vanderbilt too, like your preseason total was 4.5, and you outperformed that tremendously. You more than doubled that win total, and I think a lot of people outside of the Vanderbilt community were looking, going, "Oh, okay, they're going to get knocked out. They're going to win. They'll be lucky to win 8 games. They'll be, and then you start the season 5-0, and they're like, okay, they're going to finish 7-5. They got this extremely difficult schedule coming up. It's just Vanderbilt. They're going to lose. And Vanderbilt just did not lose. So in a way, you could say Vanderbilt was the biggest surprise, but also no one was surprised, because the way they were playing at a certain point, you were just like, okay, maybe we have to accept the fact that Vanderbilt is for real here.
And they were good the year before, where Houston and Virginia were awful in 2024.
Yeah, and
another one they weren't as disappointing as Clemson or Penn State, but my Gamecocks were very disappointing. They were coming in as a top 15 team, a team that we expected they'd win 8-9 games, and they just fell flat on their face this year.
Yeah, I would say with Lenore Sellers and Nick Harbor and, the things you had coming back offensively, with Dylan Stewart coming back on defense, and, you had Cody White that's Cody White, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cody White is your defensive coordinator who's been successful his entire time there with Beamer, had a lot of momentum. To me, it's more than just a little bit of disappointment there for South Carolina. And it's all, and it just shows you how important coaching is in college football, especially at the coordinator level, because South Carolina was a good offensive coordinator away from being a really nice team.
Yeah, I mean Clayton White is the name. But yeah, he's good. Yeah, no, Clayton White. But yeah, I mean,
listener will know who Cody White is. He was former head coach at Brentwood Academy. So
okay,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Mike Shula experience didn't even last a full year. It was awful. But I'm happy that they've added Kendall Briles as the O coordinator for next year. I think that was a good move and a good fit for Sellers because he had some very good years at Arkansas when it was KJ Jefferson's best years. Mm-hmm. And Sellers is more talented than Jefferson, but similar profiles.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to pile on Mike Shula, but I was watching that Raise the Flags documentary from about the Tampa Bay Bucks, and he's the one that got he's the one that got Tony Dungy fired, basically. Yeah, he's that not to pile on him, but Tony Dungy got fired because they couldn't score, and Mike Shula was his coordinator. Yeah. So, but the question still remains: how does Vanderbilt become the next Indiana? Like Indiana's inspired a lot of things for a lot of people over this two-year period. How does Vanderbilt get to that level? And to me, I think they're well on their way. We'll talk about that next. All right, we are wrapping up, surely to go into overtime like a lot of these NFL playoff games. But joining me is Mike Huesmann from Off Season After Dark. If you haven't checked him out, outside of the family of Locked On shows, you should do so. And it's thanks for making us your first listen. If you want to follow along at Locked On Vandy, to follow along with the show at Huesmann CFB on X. If you want to follow along with anything that he does, writing for Mike Farrell Sports and hosting Off Season After Dark. So, but Mike, it's a valid question. Given what they've done, and what they've done with, the lowest blue chip ratio ever to win a national championship. I think they were like 8%, something like that. A lot of 3-star high school signees and transfers and guys that signed originally at JMU and transferred to Indiana. So they count as transfer guys, but really they were Signetti recruits. Yeah. So however you want to look at that, but the methods that he's employed, what does Vanderbilt have that's similar to Indiana, and what do they need to do to kind of get more in line with that and become a relevant contender? Maybe not as fast as Indiana has, because that's insanely quick, but what does Vanderbilt have? Let's start with that. What does Vanderbilt have in common with Indiana that they can point to and go, hey, we have a chance? And it's more than just some crazy podcast host saying we have a chance.
I think largely it is you have a massive NIL network in a premier city where people want to live.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, we've seen a lot, whether it be people in my home state of Minnesota talking about the Gophers, or Gamecock people, Arkansas, Auburn, whoever you want to say. I don't like it when people say, well, Indiana did it, so anybody can. No, that's not true, because yes, Indiana has a really good coach. Signetti is phenomenal. They also have Mark Cuban bankrolling them, and who is essentially the owner of Indiana football. You need massive NIL boosters to fund your operation, and not everybody has that. I think Vanderbilt does have the coffers to do that, unlike a lot of other programs that are saying that. And I think what Vanderbilt has, in their arsenal that they could do that. Vanderbilt, similar to SMU, potentially UCF, Houston, you're in a major city. There's a lot of talent around you, and you could incorporate the either local NIL base or the alumni base of NILs to fund your program and be a yearly contender.
Yeah, no doubt. And Nashville being one of the fastest growing cities in not only the Southeast, but maybe even in the country, a lot of companies are moving their bases to Nashville. Like Nissan has done so. Bridgestone, you have HCA, you have a lot of the medical people, obviously, people in the music business. A lot of the major record companies that fund a lot of the country music and rock and roll are in Nashville, based out of Nashville. You have, I'm trying to think of all the companies that are bringing their help. Like In and Out from California is moving to Nashville, or has moved to Nashville. The headquarters has left California for Tennessee. I mean,
I'm not pushing a political stance here, but we're seeing a high number of companies move from the far north, New England, and the West Coast to the South because of corporate tax reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of
just the way it is.
Have they have favorable tax stuff, and that's as far political as we're going to get. But nonetheless, what that means for NIL purposes is that you have some really nice, important, wealthy people, even just outside of your Vanderbilt network, that can say, hey, there's a local team here. Let's fund it. Let's give them some opportunity. And then not only you get that, but there's a lot of wealth at Vanderbilt.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I certainly don't know the community as well as you do, but that's how it's been portrayed to me. Yeah.
And Vanderbilt doesn't have to publicize those numbers because it's a private institution. No. So they've got, I mean, if all the wealth decided to get behind athletics, which I think Chancellor Diermeyer is hopefully pushing towards for the university and its donors and its biggest donors, is to support athletics so that they can be competitive and be that front porch of the university, that you really have a chance at getting some high quality people. It starts, and for Vanderbilt football, it's going to start with Jared Curtis, and then it's going to move to whatever, right? It's going to move in whatever direction it needs to move based on that first domino of the big. And
similar with SMU, and we saw it start with SMU last year. It's not going to be an every year thing, but they weren't bad this year. They beat Miami. You're going to stay relevant, and because they're private, you don't have to disclose anything about what you're doing. You get your boosters behind you, and you're funding an operation.
Yeah. Now let's look beyond the money, and as Vanderbilt gets more into relevance on the field, the NIL stuff will become more relevant too. But for Cignetti, he gets these guys. Now what? And I think for Cignetti, which this is going to be a huge loss for him, he just lost his strength coordinator to Tennessee. That's not great for Indiana. But when you look at what Vanderbilt has in strength and conditioning, when you look at the coaching staff, when you look at how Clark Lea has designed his not only on the field assistants, but in the world of college football now, much like the NFL, you have to be spread out. You have to have a great scouting department for transfer portal guys. Mm-hmm. You have to have a great high school recruiting department. You have to have marketing. You have to have strength and conditioning, training, whatever you want to call it, all aspects that go into that. You have to have, a great sports medicine staff. You have to have a great equipment staff that gets things ready for practice. And you have to have a coach that's not afraid to compete at practice. And the big schools have those, like Kurt Cignetti, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, Mario Cristobal,
Ryan
Day. All of the schools that you're considering elite have that competitive nature and the rosters to go with it. Now, Vanderbilt has everything except for the roster, which is developing slowly but surely.
And a less talked about thing related with the strength and conditioning, we all know about how, injury prevention, getting stronger, faster, etc. In the off season, that's the main coach that's coming in contact with those guys day to day. So you're a conduit from the head coach and that staff because you're in day to day contact with the team, and you're the bearer of that message to them for 8 months out of the year.
Yeah. So, I think the two most important things for Clark Lea that he has going for him is the infrastructure that he's built within his staff, and then the NIL structure that is being put in place and tinkered with throughout. Each year it gets adjusted, and things are, what do we do well, what do we not do well? So there's a lot of promise here in Nashville. Will they become the next Indiana? This is such a unique case with Indiana. I don't know if anybody will replicate what they did, but there's going to be a lot more relevant programs now that NIL is involved, and you're going to see there's going to be some programs that surprise you that have a lot of money. So
my buddy asked me this today, and I think it's a good question that I wanted to bring up to you. What program or two do you think would be the most likely to be in Indiana, a non-traditional power who could become relevant and compete for titles?
I mean, honestly, and Vanderbilt's proving that it's doing it. I think Vanderbilt very well could be because of everything we just talked about. And then outside of Vanderbilt, I really like what South Carolina's doing, honestly, in the portal. They're starting to become a player in this game. And Ole Miss, I think, is continuing to show that wasn't a fluke and that wasn't just a Lane Kiffin thing. Texas Tech, with all the oil money that they have, they're becoming somebody that could have some power. Yeah,
and Texas Tech was one I thought of, but them and SMU with making the playoffs the last 2 years, I didn't pick them. I had mentioned one of them. UCF is an interesting one to me. If somehow, being in Orlando, if they could tie in with Disney and the billions of dollars Disney has as an NIL, they could be fantastic.
They could be.
That would be an interesting one. So I think UCF could be one to watch there.
Yeah, and they're in a big conference now too, so they're not just
exactly. You're Big 12 now. Yeah, and I think those ACC Big 12 offer you an easier path to the playoff than the SEC and Big 10 do. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. And they're in a great state for talent as well. If they want to continue with the high school recruiting. So, but Mike, man, this was fun. Of course, we get to do this weekly, so it's not like I'm like thanking you and saying, okay, well, we'll see you maybe never. This is a weekly thing, so we'll continue this discussion and we'll continue all the off-season topics as we go. And make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're going to continue. If Vandy is not done in the portal, we'll talk portal editions. We'll grade the portal stuff as it slows down. We'll talk about Jared Curtis, the quarterback battle, all of that stuff moving forward. Of course, basketball as well. And
not doing so hot right now. Hogs have gotten out to an early lead.
Yeah, that's it's like Vanderbilt just fell asleep at the wheel. I don't know. I'm waiting for Vanderbilt to show up. This is kind of bad. But that being said, we'll talk to you later. Make sure you like, subscribe, join the Everydayer Club, become part of that, become one of the first members there, and really represent Vanderbilt in the Locked On Discord channel. But until next time, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you check out Off Season After Dark as well. Make Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football your second listen within the network. And we'll see you back here next time. Anchor down. Peace.